Hi, KT, how are you?
Hey girl, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm happy to see your face.
I'm happy to see your face.
Thanks so much. I'm glad that we get to have you on this panel. You guys, I'm introducing KT. She is the co-founder of the C.R.O.W.N Collective, director of operations. That's a new iteration in the world. It's a new dream that's moving forward. And she has gone through a lot this year, you guys. Actually making her way from Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I met you, over to Los Angeles. And I'm just excited to bring her to y'all. I'm from Texas, by the way, so y'all slips out every once in a while. Because she's just someone who really believes in bigger possibility, and especially in community. So KT, please, will you give us a little bit about your current journey with 2020? We'll start there, but then I want to hear, I know it's a journey. That's why we're in this together. Tell me more about also kind of the backstory too of just your dance history and just like how you got to where you are today, or what you focus on today, what you're most passionate about.
All right. You can keep me in line because sometimes I tend to go around. But starting with this year, 2020, I moved from Phoenix, Arizona to LA on April 1st, April Fool's Day, in the mid of the height of the pandemic, from one place to like one of the higher places that were, dealing with the high rates of COVID exposure and whatnot. So that was very interesting. And I've grown up in Phoenix my entire life. I've traveled quite a bit for a number of years with doing some of the work that I'll get into, but it was hard. It was very hard for me to leave all that I know. And it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I had spent a lot of time being intentional about getting into the community here. So yes, I've grown up here, but there's different aspects of different venues with nonprofit work and such. And there's multiple areas of people that you have to reach in order to actually get things moving. And so I felt like I had just reached this point where I was beginning to break barriers. And then, I had this calling to go to LA, which is way bigger than Phoenix, somewhere I haven't lived. I know people, but it's not the same influence that I have here. And so really it comes down to, faith. And I think that no matter where you stand, following the unctioning that is deep within you of something grander, something greater, is actually, I feel like what a lot of people do that live in LA. They may not call it faith, but that's essentially what it is, right? Like they have this dream, this goal, this vision, and they jump and they do what they got to do to figure it out. So with our new organization, we're a baby. We just started in November of last year. And so this year we were supposed to do a lot of things that obviously had to get redirected, postponed. I was supposed to be leading some world expansion trips this summer in 3 different countries, and that didn't happen, which I was really sad about. 2 of the countries I had never been to, so I was really excited about that. And then we were supposed to be working on a stage show, which has been something I've been very eager to do for the past 2 years, and we've had to redirect that. So this year has been a lot of redirecting, recalibrating, learning to be flexible, but also it's been a lot of healing, a lot of clarity, and a lot of growth. So that's what I would say I can sum up 2020. Now to try to get to the next part of your question, when you say, how did I get here? I grew up as a kid just loving the idea of being in the arts and entertainment industry. I wanted to be a singer, actor, dancer, triple threat. So I was always watching movies back in the day, which kind of, dates me a little bit, but they used to have the handheld, camcorders. My parents had one, and I lived in apartments. I lived in apartments for a very long time. So I would recruit the kids in our apartments to play these roles that I had made. I would like write out scripts and I'm like, you're going to be this, you're going to do that. And so that desire was always in me. And as I grew, I'm also multiracial. So my mother is Native American, African American, and of Hispanic descent. And then my father is Irish and Norwegian. So I've grown up around a lot of different people. And I just had this like passion to always want to include everybody and find out like history, and learning about other places was something I was always
Yeah.
fascinated about as a kid. And it just got more firm the older that I got. Um, in the high school that I went to, it was considered like the bottom of the totem pole in our district, and that's where kind of a light of a fire came in, specifically paying attention to demographics of people that have less, and not as, you know, many privileges. It's not that they're not talented or that they're not capable. It's just a matter of having the right tools and resources. And I saw that in the high school that I went to. And so it was like, yo, if I can get to a point where I can, you know, help people understand what they're not thinking through and bridge and connect people, then that's what I want to do. Um, and dance was something I got into really late in the game. My cousins used to make me do like living room performances, but
I love them.
actual like training, I had a brief connection in high school, our high school dance program, which has been really cool. And I feel like that's an intertwining part of my story that I refer back to and try to remind myself when I get insecure or doubting. I was never the best in the room. I wasn't. But I was always provided an opportunity because someone believed in me.
Mm.
And I'm super grateful for that, because I then end up being able to have a professional dance career in Arizona, doing all of like the major gigs that you can do in that state, from MBA to WNBA, a performance dance company, Street Fusion, and then getting to go on tour and doing some more work. So my heart has always been for people and has always been for connecting, and also making change and empowering other people to know like you have something valuable to contribute. So that's where I'll stop, because
Yeah.
I think I did pretty good at condensing it, because
You
usually
did
I go
great.
for
You did good. You've practiced clearly, right? It's good. I love hearing about your history a little bit more. Helps me actually go, oh, that makes sense about you, because I have seen, most of what I've seen with you is that like you are constantly trying to like connect with communities that maybe are not as privileged, or they don't have as many resources, right? So
Yeah.
going like dance is completely accessible to you as well. And hey, let's do it together, by the way, which actually was my kind of focus in college. And I don't think you and I have gotten to talk about that before, but my whole thesis as a senior at ASU, Arizona State, go Sun Devils, was completely about community work. So we would go into oncology centers and work with cancer patients. We would go into actually inner city Phoenix, and create a whole like shows with the whole community. It was really amazing, like such a good experience. And so I really share that heart with you. I'm just like, I want to see more of it. Can you talk to us about what you kind of yeah, touched on that you guys might be doing trips this year? So what is sort of the focus of the C.R.O.W.N Collective? Help us understand sort of like the themes and the principles, the values you guys carry.
Gotcha. So shout out to all the Sun Devils out there. I took a class that was community engagement art practices at ASU, and that like clicked for me. Like, this is what I want to do. Being able to use the platform of artistry to engage people, to raise awareness. And that's really the heart of what C.R.O.W.N Collective is. Marcus Jones, who is the co-founder, and he's like a little brother to me, even though we're not blood related, it couldn't be any closer, is realizing the fact that no matter where you go in the world, people love music, they love dancing, they love anything that has to do with art. So it's a no-brainer of the ability to put people on a level playing ground, or at least in the same room, right? And it's been a process and a journey, because both him and I are visionaries. So another thing with 2020 has literally been like filtering, like, okay, we want to do all these things, but how do we make a strategic plan and do this, right?
That's what we have.
So our vision and mission statement is to creatively awaken the world to proactive change by empowering people, engaging culture, and impacting communities through artistry. It took us 4 months to get that, girl.
That is so good, crisp and clean. Thank you very much.
Yes. Because we wanted to be able, because even though right now, again, we're taking a first step through specifically emphasizing in dance, and our main target demographic is youth and young adults, but we want to reach all the things, but yeah, start somewhere.
Yeah.
So really, and talking about the adjustment and the caliber change. So I have had the privilege to do a lot of mission work, but it's also creative expansion or world expansion, right? I believe highly in service. And I think I'm a very firm believer that everyone should travel. Now, you may not have to go to a different country, but at least just a different area than what you have grown up in or lived in, because it's really hard to connect and empathize with people when you are polar opposite and when you don't do life, right?
Yeah.
You can have so many opinions and assumptions if you are far away, right?
Yes.
But when I get to be in your space and see what it's really like, then I have a whole new awareness that's broadened, right? And so there's a value in that. There's such a value in that. And it's also not just for what you can do for where you go, but the inner work that happens in you and how you can develop as an individual. And just how you work with other people, whether it's in your 9 to 5 or your community or on a larger scale. So that's really the heart of these trips, is helping specifically with artists, being able to say like, hey, like what I mentioned earlier, we can go to a place where we don't speak the same language, but we speak the same language, right? Like they're gonna vibe with you when they start seeing you move, you know, like I got to go to Haiti one year, and these teachers let us use their classroom, and for like an hour and a half I was just with like 25 kids of all ages and dancing. And it's crazy because American culture is very influential. They didn't speak English, they spoke Creole, but they knew the nene. So but you know, I went in there, and one of the little boys, he actually was doing capoeira. And so I saw him jingling. So I started doing it, and his like eyes just lit up, and he was like, you know, and then that was a connection. And they were just, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. And so that's the heart behind those trips, is helping artists to get out of their norm and experience things on a larger scale, to help also understand the value in their gift. Because with arts and entertainment, which I love, I love performing, but it's also more than that. It can be more than that. It doesn't have to be just that. You can actually use it to better the people around you. And so that's the heart of those trips.
I'd like to hear you talk a little more about that. What are some of the things that specifically you've seen when you said with arts and entertainment makes it like, what are some of the things that you feel like make it insular or like limiting? And what are the ways that you like, I guess, have combated that in yourself? Like you've gone like, I'm going to actually like choose to actually put my energy more in this direction than, which you have obviously now with what you're actually bringing artists into and leading them into, which I think is incredible. Like take me on a trip, please. Sign me up.
I got you.
But yeah, so what are some of the things, especially maybe even just with the, like keeping in mind, like we're all going through a little bit of a pause or a setback with this year. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about some of the things that you see that have affected dancers to the point that you'd actually want to go, let's get out of our norm. Let's go do something else and like see the gift that is dance in another setting. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the value in entertainment is not to belittle, right? Not to say that that shouldn't happen, because there's clearly like research that shows just being able to enjoy being away from something, to get outside of, right? To distract yourself. So being entertained is a part of joy. However, in the arts and entertainment industry, there is a lot of facade, and there's a lot of pressure to meet unrealistic expectations. And even with my journey in the arena, which I love, and I've grown so much. I've had amazing opportunities, and I loved that season of my life, but it also, yes.
Which you mentioned earlier. Can you remind us who you danced with?
Yeah, I got to dance for the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury, which they're hip hop teams.
Okay.
So they have phenomenal entertainment teams. I owe a lot of the performer that I am due to that season of life,
Mm.
from the people who gave me a chance and poured into me. Not even just being, because we did multiple things. So we didn't just dance, we did all the game ops, and you learned so much about presentation and all of that, which is all the great good things.
Sure.
But also in the industry, just in general, it is about what it looks like, you know, and not just in that world, but in anything. As you know, dancers that are watching this have known, if you've ever gone to audition, sometimes it's not really about your talent, it's about what you look like, right?
Yeah.
And that can tear somebody down that doesn't have the ability to decipher and to filter out, like, it's not really me, right?
Yeah. Right. Good.
And there's a lot of, like, I mean, we've seen it in all history, but a lot so recently with these celebrities that, you know, end up committing suicide or have
Yeah.
these, you know, I did just move to LA, and just in my pure experience, I'm like, does anybody not do drugs? Like, this is crazy.
Right.
But when you're having to deal with so much, right? And then it makes me, I watched a documentary on Netflix about Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart.
Yeah.
It broke my heart because literally people knew she was struggling and they still pushed her out. So she became a product and not a person.
Yeah.
Right? And that happens even in sports. I have a lot of friends that are have been professional athletes or currently professional athletes, and they're treated the same way. And not in all aspects, but a lot of the times they're a moneymaker and not necessarily a person.
Yeah.
And so I have one of my itches, like, when people talk about purpose, it's either something that makes you think about what makes you really angry or makes you really passionate. And injustice of any kind is something that makes me tick, especially when people aren't treated fairly. And then also with my own struggles of learning who I am and my voice, that's why I'm so passionate about helping other people be like, yo, you have value in what you're doing, right? And if I can help you understand that and leverage that, and then I'm a firm believer that no matter what you're doing, how you're doing it, it should always leave a better trail for those people behind us, right? So what we are doing should be another brick built for the next generation. And then they just keep doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And so challenging artists are actually some of the most influential people in the world, right? Through my little like market research and such, art has been a part of some of the most monumental and historical movements of history, you know? And so it's like, you have this influence, you have this duty. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Amen. To that.
Amen.
Oh man. Amazing. I love that. I'm like, I could just sit in that for a hot minute. But we'll move on. I'd love to hear what have been sort of the pivot points for you in 2020. You said that the trips didn't get to happen. So what are you guys focusing on? What's your main? You said dance is your first kind of arena for the arts focus for the C.R.O.W.N Collective. What are some of the ways that you've had to pivot during 2020? What have been the things you've been able to focus on and put your energy towards?
Yeah, so it's definitely a blessing in disguise. I think number one for us, but I think in society as a general, because we are one of the most busiest cultures that don't understand rest. And so a lot of times when you're going, you don't realize a lot of the issues that are going on with you personally or within your organization, right? And so I feel the blessing of COVID has been forcing people to sit still long enough to deal with themselves and to acknowledge and expose those weak points or those things that need to be strengthened. So luckily for us, we have a very small staff. But we just were like, instead of fighting it and getting upset every time we try to think of something and it's like, oh, it's going to be another month. It's going to be another month. It's just being like, this is where we're at. And this is actually a blessing for us to spend more time fine tuning. Like I said, we have a lot of visions, a lot of dreams, and we can't just bust out the seams right off the back, you know, and do them, and definitely not well. So being like, okay, what can we do first.
Mm.
And we did have, before the shutdown, we had auditions for dance companies. We have a young adult company and a youth company that Marcus leads. And so that's been all via Zoom. So we haven't got to do a lot, but the switch was we spent a lot more time discussing. So every time there's a rehearsal, we always allow everyone to check in and see how they're doing. And it was so beautiful to be like, yeah, we want to dance, but it's more important to hear how you are and what you're dealing with, and to help people know that they're not alone. And a lot of people were dealing, with some very serious stuff. And we were able to pour into them and give them a space to just let out, So that has been super helpful. And I think I would definitely encourage everyone to take that, whether you have an organization that has been around for 10 years or 2 years. If something that I've learned from my different experiences is everything from the top trickles down from the top, right? So if you are a leader, if you're not doing well as an individual, you're going to you bottle things up inside and you never deal with them. It's going to come out. At some point, it's going to come out and it's going to seep in the wrong ways. And then it's going to trickle down into all your people that you're working with. And then you have this toxic culture, right? Which emotional intelligence and all these things that are just now being brought to the forefront are revealing. And so taking the time to do your self-work and then creating a culture, a safe culture of honor, like honoring one another and where they're at, and encouraging people to move forward and giving people grace.
Yeah, I spoke about this a lot with a coach that's on this panel, Abby Stumball, and I was like, Abby's one of my heroes as far as like recreating culture, as far as like we're going to stop the punishment culture and we're going to move into a culture of, like you said, honor, uplifting, empowerment. And so I feel like that just ties perfectly back to what you were talking about of like, I love that you're like, hey, there's all of this greatness in our arts and entertainment world, in the industry, right? But we also get to fill the void over here by like realizing how much value dance has and how much we can actually recreate a culture and not just live inside of the one that exists, and not just like deal with it, but go recreate a culture. And I love that that's a huge value and a priority for you guys, huge value of mine as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be like always just complaining about the negative stuff that exists, but go make something that works. Go make something that you believe in, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Turn the light on.
Oh yeah, let there be light. It's sunsetting right now. Okay, so that leads me to asking you about, you've mentioned that you have resources. Guys, I want you to know that like she is accessible in the sense of their community wants to help empower other communities to affect their local communities, whether that's, like you said, you guys are working with youth, whatever passion you have and whatever people group you maybe have a passion to connect with and you have the access to, or you want to create the access to. Can you tell us a little bit about how they can find resources just where you guys talk about, just more about your values and how to connect with your communities and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So our Instagram page is where we download all of our stuff, and we have what is called the Collective's Table, which this idea has been just on my heart for a very long time. Again, bringing everyone to the table. Number one, everybody deserves a seat. Everybody has a seat, and it's our job to fight for other people to get their seat, right? And so in the Collective's Table, it's an IGTV series that we talk about different issues, obviously with a lot of things going on. Today, there's a lot to talk about. And so we want to make sure that we're not stepping back, but stepping forward. And we talk a lot about everything that's going on right now. Also, with us being a staff of, people of color, I mean, it's very relevant for us to speak up and speak out, and encourage other people to do so. And then also encourage them, how to, and not saying that it's like one specific right way, but also just give you a quick example. We talked about space and grace, pertaining to the race issue. A lot of people have a
Yeah.
lot of background information, and so when you first get to the conversation, some things might not go right, or whatever. And it's like there has to be a space for it, number one, and then having the grace that as we have this conversation, we're gonna, when you spar one another, there's some flicks that go on.
Yeah.
But don't get up just when it gets hard, because I
Yeah.
feel like that's what happens when we are trying to get change.
Yeah.
It can't fully come to pass if we keep getting up every time it's hard. So our Instagram is We Are C.R.O.W.N Collective, and that's where we post a lot of our material.
That's super great. I think you hit on a very potent note, which is the time that we are actually in, like we are approaching, which this may or may not apply to you if you don't live in the US, but I know that you're very well aware of what's going on in the US regardless, because we're
Right.
loud and proud. But my question for you is, how would you encourage dancers? Obviously, go check out their IGTV, go check out their, I'll make sure that it's in the email. But right now, if you were sitting in front of one of our audience, like actually speaking with them face to face, like how would you encourage them and just go, hey, like you have permission to step forward, like you said, instead of step back right now? Because I think right now, especially as artists, where we already feel pretty sensitive, we have things that are precious to us, ideas, hopes, and dreams that are actually really important to us. Putting those out in the middle of like what kind of feels like a war zone right now.
Yeah.
How would you encourage someone right now, like just today, to step forward instead of step back, and why?
Yeah, so something I try to share wherever I go is one that everyone is distinctly and uniquely created for a purpose. Everyone has something of value to contribute, and it is a lie to believe that otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Think of a puzzle, right? There's obviously some pieces that are a little bit more telling, and some pieces that aren't. But if you lose any one of them, the picture is incomplete. And so understanding that you have a piece of this puzzle of this world at this time, because you could have been born at any time in in history, but you were born
Yes.
right now with the gifts that you have, that other people may have like you, but no one has your distinct fingerprint, right?
Yeah.
Quite literally, nobody has your fingerprint, but also the gift that you have, if it's like someone else, it doesn't come with the same experience and background, etc. So we have to be brave and encourage, when we begin to be brave, we give other people permission to be brave. And so the more you step out, the more other people are going to come forward. And so I would just really encourage people to know that you have something that we need, and if you don't give it, then we're also missing out. So it's not just about you, but it's about us as a community, as a humanity. Like you're leaving us without if you don't give. Did I miss a question? I feel like there was a second part to the question.
No, I don't think so. The mic just dropped and I just wanted to give it a moment. I like the globe, like of the map or whatever the world is behind you. I'm like, guys, the humanity.
Ooh,
You know what I mean? It's just emanating, like,
yeah.
because we need that so bad right now. Every single one of us right now, regardless of whether, you're a part of the political situation in the United States, everyone's been affected by the pandemic, and their economies in every country is fluctuating. But I think hearing that message, you guys listen to KT, soak it in right now, and just like actually maybe take a moment to go, oh, that's right, that's my fingerprint. Or take a moment while you guys are listening to maybe close your eyes and spend time with yourself and go like, try to remember, sit with who you are. The reason you're watching this, like there's a purpose behind that. And sit with who you are and why, like what you have so much to offer to the table right now. So whether that feels small to you or it feels like, oh, actually I have a huge thing, don't judge it. Just like let it happen and bring it forth. Like she said, we need it. Like we actually all need it.
If I can just add one more thing, as you were talking, it reminded me of like as much as it's important to know you have a piece of the puzzle, is to also relax and let go that you don't have to be every piece. I know that's something I struggle with,
Yeah. Yeah.
is trying to do a million things and you're passionate, you like want to do this and you want to do that.
It's
But
good.
it's okay just to be in your lane and to give your piece. Your piece is your
Yes.
piece. We can't be everything else.
Yeah. I'm like, that's it. My drop. We're done. Because that's a lot to sit with, honestly. Even just going like, if we take an honest look right now and we don't sit back, that's what this whole entire summit is about, is like, it is like you've articulated insanely well, KT. So thank you so much for that, because it's so much easier for us to play small,
Yeah.
to keep our voices quiet when so many voices are loud, when actually like the whatever it is that's on your heart in any way that can create connection around you is exactly what we need right now. It's exactly
Yeah.
what the people next to you need, the people that are following you on social media, whatever it is. And if it's just for you, if it's just getting out in your backyard and just getting the wiggles out and just being a dancer for nobody else, whatever it is right now, it's essential. It's necessary. So I love it. I'm inspired.
Thank
Guys.
you so
Yes.
much for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a privilege, such a delight talking with you this evening, KT. You guys make sure that you check out everything that is in the email. Go follow them, support them. If you're in LA, maybe reach out,
What's up?
be a neighbor, be a good neighbor. And we'll follow up. We'll see you in the next session, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, KT.